Greetings, everybody. Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles. I'm not alone today. I have my trusty co-host here, Maya the cat. Although I don't know how active she's going to be. Oh, what do you know? She's alive. So yeah, I've got another episode for you. And what I decided to do this time around was I just did a blind grab of some of my my LPs, and we're going to chat about them. Just a quick synopsis of each album, and yeah, you can let me know down below in the comments if you have it. If you don't, comments, whatever, we'll get to that just now. And then also right at the end, I want to just mention a couple of new releases that have caught my eye and my ear over the past couple of weeks that I think are worth mentioning. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to show you. One hasn't got the old cash for all these new releases because some of them are pretty pricey, especially here in SA. If you're buying vinyl, the prices are just insane. But anyway, what I will do is mention them and you can check them out for yourselves. A lot of them I have listened to on YouTube, etc. And there's some really good stuff out there. So let's get into it. It's a really cold day here today in Cape Town. There's been quite a bit of rain the last few days, but we are well into winter. So, yeah, it's to be expected. Right, let's get into it. I see my co-host has buggered off. So it's a solo show. First one. Now, this is a band that, if you like, was my introduction to rock music. In fact, not this particular album, but one of the others. Phoenix was my very first album that I got at the tender age of, I think, 12 or 13 or whatever it was. And my poor mother, whenever it was my birthday in my teens, she'd say to me, "What do you want for your birthday?" So I said, "I want an LP, and I want it from this band." Now, my mother had no idea about rock music. I mean, she was clueless. So this poor woman had to go search high and low to all the record stores, and bless her heart, she got them in the end. And yeah, this particular band, I think I collected most of them from birthdays in my teens, thanks to my mom. Talking about the band Grand Funk Railroad. There's the great album cover. Grand Funk Railroad, and then they just became Grand Funk a bit later. So this is going back to their early days. This is their second album. The first one is called On Time, I think it was, with a train on the cover. So I want to see where this was bought. Old Mutual Centre, Exchange Place, Cape Town, Musica. I actually ran that store for a while many years later. But yeah, this album's got quite a bit of history with me. This is one of the first albums that I ever got. This was an import. I don't know how much it would have been back in those days. But a great record. And this is them in their power trio sort of era, phase, if you like. They became a little bit more commercial later on with the advent of a keyboardist. I think from We're an American Band and a few albums after that, they did change the style. This is my favorite, the early raunchy power trio stuff. And you know, there were many great power trios in the early 70s, but this band kicked some serious butt. I mean, these guys in the early days sold out Shea Stadium in the States quicker than the Beatles, and they took some doing. Never a great fan of the critics, but you know, who are the critics? If the people buy your albums, that's what counts. And they had a massive fan base, very much a people's band. Mark Farner, the lead guitarist and vocalist, sometimes keyboardist, always mentioned the people in the audience as brothers and sisters. So, you know, it was that kind of vibe. So who else was in the band? Let me just show you the great gatefold sleeve here. There we go. There are the three guys. So there's Mel Shecher. He was the bass player. In the middle there is Don Brewer, the drummer and vocalist. And there's Mark Farner. Guitars, vocals, and keyboards. Let's see if I have that right. Guitar, piano, harmonica, and vocals, Mark Farner. He was a great harmonica player as well. Don Brewer, drums and vocals, and Mel Shecher, bass. I don't think Mel Shecher ever sang, even as a backing vocalist in this band. Maybe his voice wasn't that great. Excuse me, I just had my early morning coffee here. So yeah, this is a great raw. What I like about these early Grand Funk albums is the bass work. It's right up front in the mix. Mark Farner was never a Joe Satriani type flashy guitarist, but what he did was the right stuff for this band. I mean, he could play a guitar, but it was very raw, very sort of almost garagey in a way, garage type rock. Starts off with a track called Got This Thing on the Move. Don Brewer as well is a brilliant drummer on here. He was one of my favorite drummers right in the beginning when I first started getting into music. Like I mentioned, Mel Shacher's bass work right up front. Please Don't Worry. There's a lot of soul to their music, which I guess the Grand Funk actually comes from the Grand Trunk Railroad or Railway Company in America. They just mess around with the words. But there's a lot of soul and groove to their music, which is what I always enjoyed with them. Highfalutin Woman, which has got a really nice groove to it. Mr. Limousine Driver and In Need, which has got some serious wah-wah guitar. If that's the right track I'm thinking of. A lot of these would go on to be on that famous first live album of theirs. If you want to listen to the rawest live album ever, the first Grand Funk. Then on side 2, you've only got 3 tracks. They're quite lengthy. Winter and My Soul, Paranoid, not the Black Sabbath Paranoid. This is the Grand Funk Paranoid. I think that's maybe the one with the wah-wah guitar. And then Inside Looking Out, which became a staple for the band, a really lengthy track. Some nice harmonica work from Mark Farner. There's about 3 different parts to that track. It's actually not their track. It was a Eric Burdon and Animals. I think it was their track. And having heard the Animals version, this is way better. This one just cooks. And that, as I said, became a live. I think they usually closed off their concerts with that track, Inside Looking Out. Great stuff. I just love the smell of this early cardboard vinyl. I mean, this is really in good nick still. And one of my favorite Grand Funks of the early stuff. So that's the first one that I just grabbed. Next one up is a totally different. The band Renaissance from the UK. And this was them with Annie Haslam on vocals. Their first 2 albums had a different lineup. This one's called Scheherazade and Other Stories. There we go, there's a great cover. Scheherazade and Other Stories. There's the back. So who was in the band? John Tout on keyboards and vocals. Annie Haslam, as I mentioned, on lead vocals. Stunning voice. I think she is still performing to this day. And she must be easily in her 70s maybe. John Camp on bass and bass pedals and vocals. Terence Sullivan on drums and percussion and vocals. And Michael Dunford on acoustic guitars and vocals. No electric guitar. A lot of their music, there was no electric guitar. It was mostly acoustic. Just don't break anything back there, please. Animals. And I think Terence Sullivan, he was a different drummer to some of the others. They had a different drummer, I think, in the album before this. So it's kind of like a concept album. Scheherazade is Rimsky-Korsakov's music, of course. So it's a take on that. On side 1, you've got Trip to the Fair, The Vultures Fly High, and Ocean Gypsy. I think Ocean Gypsy became a hit off this album, or a single at least. And Annie Haslam's voice is what carries this band. I mean, the other guys in the band are great musos. I guess you'd call this orchestral prog, classical tinge prog. Prog nonetheless. But Annie Haslam's voice is what makes this band. It's such an incredible range. And she just puts... What I like about her singing is you can make out every word. You know, a lot of singers, they tend to swallow their words, or it's... it just doesn't come across. You know, this lady can sing. And so that's all on side 1. Then you get side 2, Song of Scheherazade, which has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 different pieces to it. So it's just the one track on side 2, but with all these different pieces. So you've got Fanfare, The Betrayal, The Sultan, Love Theme, The Young Prince and Princess, Festival Preparations, Fugue for the Sultan, The Festival, and Finale. Brilliant stuff. This is definitely headphone music. You've got to sit down and really get into it. It's not something which you can just jump from track to track. It is a concept album, I think. I just want to see if there's anything inside I can show you. No, it's just the vinyl. This is not a gatefold sleeve. Good prog from England. And I think this, along with Turn of the Cards, I think is the name of the album, are my favorite, and one or two others. So there we go, Renaissance, Scheherazade. Once again, something totally different. John Mellencamp, or John Cougar Mellencamp as he became known. I think right in the beginning he was just John Cougar. And the album called Aha. This was a pretty big hit for him. I think this was in the early 80s, 1983 in fact, yes. This is an import copy. I picked this up, I got this from a friend across the road here. And there were a few hits off here. Pink Houses, Crumbling Down, Authority Song. Trying to think what else was a hit on here. Play Guitar, Jackie O. This is a pretty big hit for him. I don't have anything else by him. I'm not a fan of all of his music, but this one is pretty good. Produced by Little Bastard and Don Gurman, I think it says here. Let's see if there's anything I think there are some photographs inside. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of very small photographs. I don't know how much you can see there. But I can tell you who's in the band, and there's some notable guys in this band, in fact. Kenny Aronoff on drums. He's played for everybody. I mean, he's almost like a session drummer, but he was with John Mellencamp for quite a few years in the touring band as well. Larry Crane, Toby Myers, and Mike Wanchik. I think that band stayed together. I'm not too sure what these other guys played. It doesn't say who plays what here. But those are other guys in the band. And there's a few guests. Louis Johnson, Willie Weeks, that name does ring a bell. Carol Sue Hill and Jay Ferguson recorded at the Shack. And there's the band at the bottom. I believe that Kenny Aronson and years later had a big falling out with John Mellencamp. I've actually read John Mellencamp's book, and he's not an easy guy to get on with. You know, he's very much his own boss, and what he says goes. And he was quite strict in the studio. But, you know, bands are like families. So yeah, Crumbling Down, Pink Houses was a big hit. He wrote that, John Mellencamp. He wrote most of the songs on here with a guy called George Green, I think was the other main writer. Serious Business. Yeah, it's good commercial rock. He would change later on. He would go, he's done everything, I think. He's done blues, he's done folky. Very much in the vein of a Bruce Springsteen. Although I've always preferred John Mellencamp to Springsteen. I just can't get into Springsteen. For whatever reason, you know, and I know he's a massive star and he's loved by millions, but I've tried. It's like me and Dylan. Something just doesn't click. And you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So, yeah, I'm not a Springsteen fan, but John Mellencamp I quite enjoy. And I think I must try and get a few of his other ones from around this period, or perhaps some of the earlier stuff. Moving on, this one I picked up for a song. It's not in the best nick, the cover, but I mean, you don't play the cover, you play the vinyl, is what I always say. And this is a really early album on the Decca label. But this is where I think, from this album onwards, they really started to come right. Or have an identity, I should say. The Rolling Stones, they are all young and innocent, well, maybe not so innocent, in the album Aftermath. And this was all the way back to 1966. So I don't have to tell you who's in the band, but I'll tell you anyway. Mick Jagger, of course, Keith Richards, they're on vocals. Guitar, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, when he was still with the band. Bass, Bill Wyman, when he was still with the band. Drums, Charlie Watts, who of course recently passed away. Percussion, Charlie Watts, Jack Nietzsche, Mick Jagger, marimbas and bells. And I'm sure that, what's his name? Ian Stewart, yes, he was the other guy on the keys. The unofficial member of the Rolling Stones. Never in the photographs or anything, because they said he didn't have the right look. Never mind that the guy was a brilliant musician and he did a lot for the Stones in the early days. Great musician. I always thought that was a bit of a backhanded thing, you know. But anyway, that's bands. Songs by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, arranged by the Rolling Stones, produced by Andrew Loog Oldham. Well, of course, he was the big man like Epstein was for the Beatles, he was for the Stones. It just tells you a little bit about it. At the back there, there's the guys in their funky 60s clothing, fresh faced before the drugs really took over. Of course, that would be in the late 60s and the early 70s. Mother's Little Helper, song about drugs. Yes, getting bombed through the day. Stupid Girl, Lady Jane, Under My Thumb, that was a pretty big hit for them. Don't You Bother Me, and Going Home, that's all on side 1. Then we get to side 2, Flight 505, which is a really cool song. High and Dry, Out of Time, It's Not Easy, I'm Waiting, Take It or Leave It, Think, and What You Do. And they are not really, in fact, the funny thing about this album is all the songs are very short, except for Going Home, which is 11 minutes and 35 seconds, and that's on side 1, the last track on side 1. And if you think about it, back in these days, there weren't many bands doing those sort of lengthy tracks. That would come later in the 70s. So yeah, it kind of sticks out as a really long song on here. Going Home, excuse me. As I mentioned, on the Decca label. Yeah, I was quite glad to get it. I still need to get quite a few of the early ones. I only got into the Stones early stuff later on. I was more sort of the Exile on Main Street, Sticky Fingers, Goat's Head Soup, that kind of era. That was my Stones, or my introduction to the Stones. So I need to go backwards to get the others. Later on in the 90s and that, a lot of their stuff didn't click with me either. Bridges to Babylon, and I think a lot of them were just marking time, and they were selling them purely on the name of the Rolling Stones. Anyway, that's just my opinion, of course. So there we go. And this is a mono recording. There we go. I don't think I have too many of those in my collection. In fact, I think I have another John Mayall, I think, is a mono. Anyway, moving on to the last one I want to show you. And this gentleman played for a band for many years, and a lot of the guys within that band released solo albums. But of all the solo albums that have come out of that band, I think this is probably my favorite. And I'm talking about Chris Squire, bassist and vocalist for the band Yes, progressive rock band from the UK. Fish Out of Water. If you haven't got this in your collection and you're a Yes fan, I urge you to get this. This is a really good album. And it's amazing how close his vocals were to John Anderson. And if you close your eyes and you didn't know that this was Chris Squire, you'd think that is John Anderson singing there. Really very close to his voice. And this came out in 1975, yes. And this album, my first solo album, was conceived and recorded in Virginia Water, Surrey, and at Morgan Studios, London, during the spring and summer of 1975. And there's some big names on here. Some of his buddies from Yes. Bill Bruford on drums, because he was with Yes. Mel Collins on saxophone. He's played for everybody, including King Crimson. Flute, Jimmy Hastings. Organ and bass, Patrick Moraz, who was also part of Yes for a short time. Barry Rose on a pipe organ. Acoustic and electric pianos, Andrew Price Jackman. And then you got a whole lot of brass and woodwind people here. Yeah, and that's pretty much, I don't think, David Snell, harpist, Adrian Brett, woodwind, Jim Buckhorns, I don't know these people. John Wilbraham on brass and Julian Gallier on strings. Such a nice album. It might not be in an immediate listen that you get into it straight away, but it's one of those albums that grows on you. I've never been a massive fan of that cover though. I mean, it's called Fish Out of Water, and there he is behind, I don't know, what looks like somebody's security gates. Or whatever. I don't know what that's got to do with the title of the album, but anyway, and there's a sort of a stained glass kind of thing at the back, which I quite enjoy. And this is the inside. And that, I presume, is Chris Squire with a sort of strange photograph going on there. And you've got the lyrics to the songs inside, which is quite cool. 1975 Topographic Music, which is in 75 was, or was it before this? Tales of Topographic Oceans from Yes. So he was still very much a part of the band here, but I guess it was, like most musos, you want to do something different, and you can't do it within the confines of your day job, your own band, your usual band, so you want to do your own thing if you're a musician. I just want to see where the tracks are. Hold Out Your Hand, You By My Side, Silently Falling, Lucky 7, and Safe. I think that's everything, but as you can see, they are quite lengthy tracks. Oh, there is something I can show you on the inside too. Well, not much. There he is, and there he is behind the safety gate. So let's see if there's anything else. I've got the tracks right. Yes, side 2 is just two tracks, Lucky 7 and Safe. Safe is 14 minutes, the other one is 7. And then we have Hold Out Your Hand, You By My Side, and Silently Falling. Music is obviously going to be progressive. Maybe a little bit on the, I hate saying this word, but it's probably a little bit more commercial than the Yes of the time. But it's really good, and I like the production on here. And of course, Chris Squire was such an amazing bassist. He normally played the Rickenbacker with that trademark growl to it, and a great vocalist, like I mentioned. More in the higher range, his vocals. Excellent on stage as well. If you ever watch Yes, classic Yes stuff, I mean, he was jumping all over the place with that Rickenbacker. So this is definitely, if you're into prog and you don't have this yet, maybe get this one. It's really worth a listen. It's one of those albums that kind of flew under the radar, you know. Sometimes when you're part of such a big band and you do your solo thing, it doesn't always work, you know, because people only associate you with your day job. So it's quite difficult to get but I think over time this has garnered quite a bit of attention, and I think the credit has gone up in this album. So there we go, Chris Squire, Fish Out of Water. So that's all I have to show you, but I did mention I want to talk about a couple of new releases. Like I said, I don't have anything to show you, but I thought these are worth mentioning because they really are good. The one is just a single. Well, I found it on YouTube, of course, where I find everything. And that is a track by Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. It's called I Wanna Play My Guitar. And I mean, the way these guys trade off each other is incredible. I mean, obviously, both of them are brilliant musicians, great guitarists. The one is the pupil of the other. Steve Vai was given guitar lessons years ago by Joe Satriani, when Joe Satriani's job, well, one of his jobs to make money was teaching guitar before he became famous. And yeah, I'm not sure if there's going to be a full album coming out or if this is just a one-off thing, but check it out. It's really good. It's called I Wanna Play My Guitar, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. Then there's a lady by the name of Samantha Fish, and I really need to get hold of some of her stuff because she's an incredible vocalist, amazing guitarist. She started out as a blues guitarist, but she's gone into other things as well. She can do almost anything, really. She plays that sort of box guitar. I don't know what you call those. They look like oil cans and, you know, that kind of guitar. She plays slide on that. This lady can play a guitar. Anyway, she's got a new album out called Paper Doll. And if you go right back to her early career, she's made about eight or nine albums now, I think. It is more blues-based, but the newer stuff has got more of a rock bend to it, even some funk. One of her previous albums, there was a lot of Prince influence. Very talented lady and pretty easy on the eye. If you ever check her videos on YouTube, you're going to watch a few of them. Then a band that hadn't made an album, or as far as I was aware, for quite a while, Last of the Runaways, I think, was their big album. Band from the States called Giant, with the Huff brothers in the band, and I think one of them is left, and there's Dan Huff, I don't think so anymore. I think the other brother on drums is still there. And the album is called Stand and Deliver. Really good melodic hard rock, and that's what these guys are all about, they always have been. Really nice production as well. I like the album cover as well. I just don't have anything to show you, unfortunately, but check it out. It's called Stand and Deliver by Giant. If that's, they don't get terribly heavy. It's more on the melodic side of hard rock, but some nice guitar work, and as I say, a good production. Then one of my favorites, I've got a lot of his records here, CDs as well. I haven't been getting his more recent stuff because he's been doing the singing, and it's kind of put me off. And also, you know, buying new stuff now, especially vinyl in this country is, yeah, you know, I'd have to get a a night job somewhere, or, or do something extra. I'm just an old pensioner here, you know. Anyway, I'm waffling on about Robin Trower, the great Robin Trower. Started off with Procol Harum, and he's had a lengthy solo career. He has had a few illness, what's his names, of late, but he's come back with this album, and it's been getting a lot of good reviews. He has got a singer on this album, which I'm quite chuffed about. In fact, I think there's 2 singers on here. It's called Come and Find Me. There's no big surprises. I mean, the tone is what always does it for me with Robin Trower. He's got such an amazing tone. Of course, he's played a Strat his whole career, I think, pretty much. Or at least I've only ever seen him with a Strat. And it's a really nice album. It's not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's blues-based hard rock, or not even hard rock, just rock really. Some songs are quite mellow. There are a few mid-tempo tracks, maybe 1 or 2 up-tempo. But it's good, you know, it's good music. It's what you can expect from Robin Trower. I mean, you're not going to get a thrash metal album. Anyway, so that's it. Come and Find Me from Robin Trower. Go and find your copy. And then finally, Pink Floyd, Live in Pompeii, the soundtrack. Now, this had always been available on, I think, right back in the day on video, which is where I first saw it. Then it got a DVD release, and it's now been released as the soundtrack for the first time and on Blu-ray. And I must just tell you that I managed to get the Blu-ray. Well, I've watched the Blu-ray. Incredible stuff. I have the DVD, in fact, but the Blu-ray just gives it a bit more shine, if you like. The soundtrack is amazing. I just wish they'd released that many years ago. Obviously, there was some sort of contractual problem, or for whatever reason, it never got released. It's been released now, finally. So if you're a Pink Floyd fan and you want to complete your collection, and there's lots to, I mean, I don't know how many times they've released their albums. You know, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon has been released a million times, etc., etc. But this is worth getting because it hasn't been released before, and it's a great production. And if I'm not mistaken, this guy's name gets everywhere. I think it's a Steven Wilson remix. Speaking of which, I saw yesterday that Deep Purple's Made in Japan has now got this super duper deluxe edition again. You know, I'm one of these guys that if you have a record, you have it. How many times are they going to re-release albums and you have to keep shelling out cash for... Okay, Steven Wilson's involved in this as well, and I did listen to the one track this morning, and it sounds great and everything, but I mean, how many times can you buy the same record? Yes, I suppose they are, you know, going to be bonus tracks or whatever, but my thing has always been, the reason those bonus tracks weren't on the album in the first place is that they weren't good enough for the band. But you know, in these days, record companies don't have the clout they used to have. So how are they going to make money? By re-releasing things over and over again. 30th anniversaries, 40th anniversaries, 1000th anniversaries. It's just crazy. And they look very nice. I mean, Jethro Tull's recent releases of those box sets in those long boxes, those look great. I mean, I wouldn't mind having them, but geez, I'd have to rob a bank. You know, in SA with our exchange rate and whatever, it's just about impossible. But yeah, I'm not going to get myself that Deep Purple. I've got the vinyl and I've got the CD reissue, which was from a few years ago. And I'm happy with that. You know, I don't have to keep buying that, but that's just my personal view. You may have a different view. Let me know down below in the comments, please. So that's it. That's just some of the new releases. I'll mention a few next time around. Ones that I come across that I think are worth getting into. And yeah, so that's me for today. I think I'm going to put something warmer on than this because it really is. It doesn't look too nice out there. I think this is not beach weather. Take it easy, guys. Please, down below, like I mentioned, give me any comments. Thumbs up will be fantastic. And yeah, let me know your thoughts. And also, where you guys from? You know, what sort of music do you listen to? That kind of thing. I'm into any kind of info. I love interacting with people on the channel. Have a great day. Take it easy. And I'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.